Hi everyone, it's Mari from Doodles on Instagram. Happy New Year! I've been kind of away for a couple of weeks, taking some time off, but I wanted to come here in the first week of the year just to share with you how my 2022 Hobonichi weeks turned out. This is the planner that I have been using since 2018, I think, 2018. So the way that I use this planner pretty much hasn't changed since then. So I'm not going to go too much into details, but as you can see, this year it ended up being a very chunky little planner or journal. So I'm going to go do like a short flip through, but because I have a lot of weekly pages and daily journaling here as well, I think I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is I'm just going to go over a few things on how I use this journal, just in case, someone is new to the channel and is not familiar with how I journal in this planner. And then in the meantime, I'm going to try to split the screen and show you a quick flip through of all of the pages, just because it would get a little bit boring if I just do the flip through. So yeah, starting off with the cover page or inside the cover here, I just have a couple of photos. I don't have a lot of decorations. I used to just mark the months that had already passed with this. This was a washi that I had from Wanton, no, from Happy Scrappy, but the washi is done. I finished it, so I kind of stopped doing that. But I don't really use this for anything. I used to use this page to track exercise last year. I didn't use this at all this year, so there's that. And then in the monthly pages, what I do is I usually just write a couple of sentences of what happened throughout the day, just because I tend to do journaling quite a few days after the event. So I just like to have something to refresh my memory on what happened so I can do some proper journaling on the weekly page or on the daily page as well. So then on the weekly pages, I usually go back and fill the pages for November and December as well, just because I want to have those recorded. But I tend to start the new Hobonichi Weeks journal with the new year. So this is just like retrospective journaling, and I kind of copy what I had in the previous year's Hobonichi as well. So what I do here is I like to do just some doodle every day, and then a couple of sentences or some words to symbolize what happened in the day, and then in the right-hand side, I like to add some decoration or write a little bit more about what happened that week, or even just write a quote or something like that. So that's pretty much my weeks. And then in the notes pages in the back, let's see. I don't use this for anything on this planner, but then I use this to kind of do some daily journal or something like that. And I just use those pages whenever I have something more to journal about that it's not necessarily that didn't fit on my weekly pages. So I use those as additional journaling pages. And I like to put a lot of photos here because I don't have any other journals that I actually use photos. So this is the journal that I'm using for journaling mostly, and for adding photos and ephemeras and things like that. The other thing that I am doing since last year is I've been using this Hobonichi reminiscing game here just to summarize the year. So what this does is it has the date here and then a space for you to write something. And then I counted how many spaces we had, and I figured we have between 2 and 3 days per month that I would be able to fit in here. So I just go back, I just flip through here and see what were the events that happened throughout the months. And then I just write a little summary of what happened throughout the year. So I think this is another very nice, quick way to remember what happened throughout the year. So I've been doing this since last year and I enjoyed it a lot. So then after that, the other thing that I've been doing since last year is doing some data entry. So I grab whatever I wrote in the weekly pages here and I tabulate that on an Excel spreadsheet and I use different categories. So for example, let's say here I have ink journal update. So this would be one entry on this day on planner and stationery, for example. So then I divide into several categories and I go and fill it out and fill the data. This usually takes me about maybe an hour to do so. So it's just an easier way for me to summarize the data. I'm an epidemiologist, so I really like to look at data. So having that opportunity to look back and see what happened, it's really fun for me. So let's start on this page here. So I did the same thing last year. So what were my top 10 topics in 2022 on this Hobonichi? So most of my journaling here was about work. I tend to not try to write about work because the purpose of this journaling is for me to be more mindful and trying to do stuff other than work, just trying to create a more balanced work-life relationship. But even still, I still have a lot of work written in my planner. Um, Planner and stationery was the second category, followed by family, sports, which I actually changed it last year. It was exercise, so I actually have to combine this with exercise. Then I added this new category for travel and tourism, friends, outdoor, shopping, Laika, which is my cat, and then just feeling sad or tired or stressed. These also showed up in my top 10 category. And then because I did the same thing last year and I still have the data tabulated for last year, I can compare how my 2022 went regarding to 2021. So I can see, for example, that planner stationery was number 24 last year and it's now number 2. So I've been doing a lot of planner and stationery stuff on my free time. What else? Um, I had to actually add stationery because previously it was just planner related things, but I added stationery because this year I actually had a lot of like fountain pen and ink entries on my journal, so I had to add that. Family went from number 7 last year to number 3 this year, which I really liked. Travel tourism was a category that I added this year because I knew that we were traveling a lot. We are going to travel a lot this year. So I had to add this, and it actually showed up as my top 5. So this was interesting. We weren't traveling much last year, still because of COVID. But this year well, this past year now, 2022, we actually traveled a lot. So uh, Friends, it was number 15 last year, so it moved higher this year, which is great. I'm glad I'm being more sociable because I'm a very introverted person, so it's very consuming to me sometimes to kind of interact with a lot of people, but I'm glad I'm like making an effort to be a little bit more social. Outdoor was actually number 2 last year, and it's only number, I don't know, something this year. Uh, but I think it will probably number 3 this year because I actually separated outdoor from camping, and we did a lot of camping this year. Last year I combined both categories, so I think if I combine both, outdoor would be number 3 actually. Leica went from number 13 to number 9. Leica is heavily associated with outdoor because usually when I write about her on my planner, it means that I took her for a walk or something like that. So yeah, she moved up on my list as well. And then feeling sad, tired, or stressed went from number 22 on 2021 to number 10 last year. So I guess I'm just getting busier again, and I'm getting tired and stressed and a little bit overwhelmed. But I think it's just, life getting back to regular, right? I was used to a slower pace because of the pandemic, and now we're slowly getting back to a normal rhythm, and I have to get used to that. And then another thing that it's interesting is because I had all of this data, I could actually track a little bit how did my health go. So I tend to write about having a migraine, having an IBS crisis, or feeling sad, tired, or stressed. And I only write about those things when they take a big chunk of my day. So, for example, when I have migraines that I have to drop everything that I'm doing and just rest. So it's not necessarily super accurate, but it just gives me an idea of how many crises I had. So I actually found out some interesting things, especially comparing this period with 2021 and actually combining both. So this past year, 2022, I had 10 episodes of migraine, and this is 2 episodes less than in 2021. But what was interesting is that 30% of my migraines occurred in February and 20% in December. Last year as well, 30% of my migraines also happened in February. So I'm wondering, why am I having more migraines in February? It could be because of the cold, maybe. February is one of the coldest months here. It could be maybe dehydration. Maybe I'm not being careful enough about being hydrated during winter. So I think I need to take a little bit more care of myself throughout this period, just to try to, see what I can do to reduce this number of migraines. IBS syndromes, IBS crisis, I actually had 6 events this year, which is one less than last year. And I didn't see any seasonality or anything associated with IBS crisis, mostly because it's still a very rare event to have like crisis that I need to write about in my journal. So I guess that's a good thing, but at the same time, I don't have enough data to actually look for associations and things like that. So I wonder, if I continue to monitor this for several years, if I'm gonna be able to find a pattern. And then feeling sad, tired, and stressed, I actually had 24 events this year, which was 13 more than in 2021. Um, March was when I had the most cases of being sad, tired, and stressed. And looking back at my journal, I'm pretty sure that this was because I was having issues with my visa being delayed and things like that. So it was a whole month in March that I was very stressed about documentation and adulting and things like that. So that was likely what happened here. So it's something that it's unusual, and I don't expect to have that every single year. But then another thing that was interesting that I did was, since I had a lot of episodes of migraines in 2021 and 2022, I could combine both and just do ask my husband for help, because he also loves looking at data. So we looked at those together. So we were doing some simple logistical regressions just to see what could have been associated with migraine events. So we looked at events that happened up to 7 days prior to the migraine event. And I actually found that shopping in the 7 days prior to um, shopping within 7 days prior actually reduced my odds of having a migraine in about 70%. And this was statistically significant. So that was interesting. Of course, there's no correlation there, but I thought it's definitely just a spurious correlation. But I thought it was interesting that it was actually associated or protective of migraine. So yeah, that was just fun and interesting. Also, um, some things that I write in my journal also were associated with having a migraine with an odds ratio of 1.98, meaning that writing this on my journal actually increased my odds of having a migraine within 7 days. But what this means to me, how I interpret this, is that this is actually a proxy of me not having done anything in the day. So whenever I don't have anything interesting to write about myself, I write about these types of things. So I think this is just a proxy of me not being very active throughout these days. So I was just writing about something else, and that actually is what generating this signal. Date nights were also associated with having higher odds of migraine. And that was interesting because at first I thought that it was just because we tend to eat more junk food during date nights. And, I have IBS, so that also triggers my stomach or my irritable bowel syndrome. And that could potentially lead to migraine. So that was what I was thinking initially. But I also found that actually date nights are associated with winter. And we know that most of my migraines occur during winter, actually in February, right? So I think this is actually a confounding because during summer and spring days, we tend to go to camping or doing something outside other than having date nights. So I think date night is just a confounding for winter, actually. And then cleaning was also marginally associated with having migraine. By increasing my odds of having migraine, but it was just, marginally associated. So this is just some of the nerdy things that I like to do using the data that I have collected. This is definitely not the most accurate data that I could have regarding those things, but it's fun. It's fun to look back and see, do I see any patterns? Do I see any trends? Do I see any associations that could perhaps explain some of these things? So, yeah, I thought it was really fun. And the fact that I'm um, just accumulating a lot of data throughout the years, I think this is so fun. And it's one of the reasons why I like keeping this little journal up to date because it's such an easy way for me to go back and tabulate the data later and just see if I can find anything interesting that might have happened. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my Hobonichi weeks for 2022. I still have a couple of pages blank left here, but it's okay. I think this planner is, big enough as it is, and I don't need necessarily to use all of the pages here. It was very well loved, so I don't think I will be bothered with a few pages left blank. So, yeah, that's it. That concludes my 2022 Hobonichi journal. So, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, which is a little bit different. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.